The morning sunlight spilled through the thin curtains of Emily's small apartment, painting the faded walls in pale gold. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the alarm clock that had been ringing for 5 minutes too long. Her son, Noah, was curled up beside her, his tiny fists tucked under his chin, breathing softly. For a moment, Emily allowed herself to watch him. His peaceful face reminded her why she endured the constant struggle. Bills littered the kitchen counter, reminders of how close she was to losing control. Rent was overdue, the electricity bill threatened disconnection, and her part-time job at the diner barely covered food and daycare. She had promised herself that she wouldn't cry in front of Noah, but late at night, when he was asleep, her pillow often caught the tears she couldn't hold back. Today was supposed to be different. Today, she had an interview at Carter Enterprises, one of the city's leading corporations. It wasn't just a job, it was the possibility of stability, of finally giving Noah a future she could be proud of. She had ironed her only professional blouse the night before, carefully sewing a button that had come loose. Every detail mattered, this was her chance. But life, as always, had other plans. Just as she was preparing to leave, her phone buzzed. It was her babysitter. "I'm so sorry, Emily," the woman said hurriedly, "my daughter is sick. I can't watch Noah today." The words hit like a stone sinking into her stomach. Emily begged, offering to pay extra, but it was no use. The line went dead, leaving her staring at her reflection in the dark screen. For a few seconds, she thought about canceling the interview. But she knew opportunities like this didn't come twice. Her gaze shifted to Noah, who was now awake, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mommy, where are we going?" he asked, his voice innocent and curious. Emily crouched down, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "We're going to an important meeting, sweetheart. You'll come with me, just for today." She dressed him quickly, smoothing down his shirt and handing him his favorite toy car to keep him busy. As they left the apartment, Emily clutched his small hand tightly, her heart racing with equal parts hope and dread. The city's bustle swallowed them as they boarded the crowded bus, strangers glancing at the young woman with the child on her lap. She ignored the looks, focusing instead on her breathing, silently rehearsing answers to possible interview questions. When the bus pulled up in front of the towering glass building of Carter Enterprises, Emily's breath caught in her throat. The lobby inside gleamed with marble floors, tall plants, and professionals in crisp suits. She felt Noah's grip tighten around her fingers. His wide eyes darted around, both curious and intimidated. Emily whispered to him, forcing a smile despite her nerves. "Just stay close to me, okay? We'll be fine." What she didn't know was that walking into that office with her son would change not just her day, but the rest of her life. The lobby of Carter Enterprises buzzed with quiet efficiency. Men and women in pressed suits tapped away on their phones, their briefcases neatly placed at their sides as they waited for their turn. Emily held Noah's hand tighter, trying to steady her own nerves. She walked toward the reception desk, her polished but slightly worn shoes clicking softly against the marble floor. The receptionist, a young woman with sharp eyeliner and an even sharper expression, glanced up. Her gaze immediately fell on Noah, who stood shyly behind Emily, clutching his toy car. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, her tone clipped. "Yes," Emily said with a hopeful smile. "I'm here for the interview. Emily Dawson." The receptionist scanned her clipboard, then raised an eyebrow. "You brought your child." Emily swallowed hard, her cheeks heating. "Yes, unfortunately, my sitter canceled last minute, but Noah will be no trouble." Before she could finish, a man in a gray suit approached. He was tall, with thinning hair and the air of someone who thought himself important. The nameplate on his desk later revealed him as Mr. Collins, hiring manager. He looked at Emily as though she had committed a crime. "Ms. Dawson." His eyes flickered down to Noah. "What is this?" Emily bent slightly, placing a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. "This is my son, Noah. You brought a child to a corporate interview." His voice carried across the lobby, drawing the attention of several waiting candidates. A few exchanged smirks, others whispered behind their hands. Emily's throat tightened. "I didn't have another option today, but I promise." Collins held up a hand, cutting her off. "This is highly unprofessional. If you can't even arrange proper childcare, how can you possibly be expected to manage a serious position here?" The words stung like ice. Emily's heart pounded as she tried to explain, but his dismissive tone left little room. She felt the burn of humiliation spread across her face. She could sense Noah shrinking closer to her leg, confused and frightened by the tension. "Sir, I'm more than capable," Emily tried again, her voice trembling but firm. "All I'm asking for is a chance to prove myself." Collins shook his head, already turning away. "I'm sorry, Ms. Dawson, but this isn't the place for distractions." Emily's chest tightened as the rejection settled in. She bent down to Noah's level, forcing a small, shaky smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. We'll go." As she gathered her things, Noah's innocent voice rose in the silence of the lobby. "Mommy, why don't they want you?" The question pierced her heart. She blinked rapidly, fighting the tears threatening to fall. Around her, the whispers grew louder, some candidates looking at her with pity, others with ridicule. Emily turned to leave, her dignity fraying at the edges but still intact. She held Noah's hand, determined to walk out with her head high. Just as they reached the glass doors, the sound of polished shoes echoed across the marble floor. The double doors at the far end of the lobby swung open, and a commanding presence filled the room. The CEO, Alexander Carter, had arrived. The air in the lobby shifted the moment the tall man in a navy blue tailored suit walked in. His polished shoes clicked against the marble, and a hush seemed to fall over the room. Conversations ceased, whispers died, and all eyes turned toward him. Alexander Carter, the elusive and formidable CEO of Carter Enterprises, had arrived. Emily froze mid-step, Noah's small hand clasped in hers. She hadn't expected to meet him, not today, not ever. His reputation was larger than life, a self-made millionaire, a sharp strategist, and a man feared for his ruthless business instincts. Yet, as he moved through the lobby, there was a quiet authority about him, the kind that commanded respect without demanding it. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," the receptionist stammered, her earlier icy demeanor melting into nervous politeness. Mr. Collins, the hiring manager, immediately straightened his posture, trying to appear more competent than he had a moment ago. Alexander's sharp eyes scanned the room, but they stopped on Emily and Noah. He noticed the way Emily was gripping her son's hand, her other arm hugging her worn portfolio tightly to her chest. He saw the fear, the shame, the quiet strength she was trying to summon. And then his gaze lowered to Noah, who stared back at him with wide, curious eyes. Clutching a toy car as if it were a shield. "What's going on here?" Alexander's voice was deep, calm, yet it carried authority that demanded an answer. "Mr. Collins cleared his throat nervously. "Just handling a small matter, sir. This candidate, Ms. Dawson, brought her child to the interview. I was just about to escort her out. Obviously, this isn't appropriate for a professional environment." Alexander tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Escort her out." His tone was deceptively calm, but the weight of disapproval hung in the air. "And why is that?" Collins shifted uncomfortably. "It's unprofessional, sir. A distraction. Surely you understand." For a long moment, Alexander said nothing. Then, he stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Emily. Instead of towering over her, he crouched down so he was at Noah's level. The child blinked at him, clutching his mother's leg. "And who are you, young man?" Alexander asked gently. "Noah," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible. Alexander's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Noah. That's a strong name." He looked back up at Emily, his eyes softer now. "And you must be his mother." Emily nodded quickly, her throat tight. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't have anyone to watch him today, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity." Alexander studied her for a long moment. Then he rose to his full height, his expression hardening as he turned to Collins. "You were about to throw away a candidate because she showed up determined to keep her commitment despite the odds." Collins stammered. I was only following." "No," Alexander interrupted sharply. "You were following prejudice. That's not how we run things here." The lobby was silent. Emily's heart pounded, unsure if this meant salvation or more humiliation. Alexander turned back to her, his voice steady. "You're not leaving, Ms. Dawson. You're coming with me. I'll conduct the interview myself." And with that, the balance of her world began to shift. The elevator ride felt surreal. Emily stood silently beside Alexander Carter, her pulse thundering in her ears. Noah clung to her hand, swaying slightly as the elevator ascended to the top floor. She tried not to fidget, but anxiety gnawed at her. Why would the CEO, of all people, choose to personally interview her? Was this kindness, or a test she was bound to fail? When the doors opened, she was met with a sweeping view of the city skyline. The CEO's office was spacious but not ostentatious, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished oak furniture, and a few understated family photos that seemed strangely out of place for a man known for his ruthless image. "Please, sit," Alexander said, gesturing toward a chair across from his sleek desk. His tone was calm, but there was an authority in it that made refusal impossible. Emily guided Noah to a chair in the corner, where he busied himself with his toy car. She smoothed her skirt and sat, her back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap to keep them from trembling. Alexander leaned back in his chair, studying her with sharp eyes. "Tell me, Ms. Dawson, why did you decide to come here today, knowing it might not look ideal?" Emily swallowed, forcing her voice steady. "Because I didn't want to give up. This opportunity means everything to me. I knew if I canceled, I might never get another chance." He raised a brow. Most people would have used the cancellation as an excuse. "You didn't." "No," she said softly, shaking her head. "I can't afford excuses. My son depends on me." There was silence for a moment, then Alexander leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "What skills do you believe make you the right fit for this company?" Emily straightened, seizing the chance to prove herself. She spoke of her years in customer service, her ability to multitask under pressure, and her track record of meeting deadlines despite limited resources. She described the late nights she spent balancing two part-time jobs, the problem-solving skills she developed managing tight budgets, and her determination to keep moving forward even when life threw obstacles her way. Alexander listened intently, his expression unreadable. He wasn't the type to nod or offer polite encouragement, he simply absorbed her words. When she finished, he asked a question that caught her off guard. "How do you handle failure?" Emily took a deep breath, her gaze flicking briefly toward Noah before returning to Alexander. "I learn from it. I don't have the luxury of staying down for long. Every mistake is a lesson, and every lesson brings me closer to the future I want for my son." For the first time, something flickered in Alexander's eyes, recognition. He leaned back, folding his hands. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "My mother. She raised me on her own. People underestimated her, too. But she was stronger than they ever gave her credit for." Emily blinked, surprised by the sudden glimpse of vulnerability in his otherwise polished exterior. Before she could respond, Noah giggled softly, rolling his toy car across the edge of the chair. Alexander's gaze shifted, and to Emily's astonishment, the powerful CEO reached into a drawer and pulled out a small model car, placing it on the desk. "Here," he said, offering it to Noah. "You can borrow this one." Noah's eyes lit up as he shyly approached, taking the toy with both hands. Emily's throat tightened. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not as a burdened single mother, not as a desperate applicant, but as a woman with strength worth recognizing. The interview wasn't just about her resume anymore. It was about resilience, about character, and about the quiet courage that had carried her this far. Emily sat in silence as Alexander Carter's questions gradually shifted from the rigid structure of an interview to something far more personal. He asked her about her goals, her dreams beyond simply earning a paycheck. At first, she hesitated. Dreams had always seemed like luxuries for people with fewer burdens. But under his steady gaze, the words spilled out. "I want to give Noah stability," she admitted softly. "A home where he never has to wonder if the lights will stay on or if there's food on the table. And for myself, I want to prove that I can do more than just survive. I want to thrive." The room fell quiet. Alexander leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled thoughtfully. For a man notorious in business circles for being ruthless and pragmatic, there was an almost unexpected softness in his eyes. "You have resilience most candidates don't," he said finally. "You came here despite every reason not to. That tells me more about your character than any resume ever could." Emily's chest tightened. Was he truly considering her? She didn't dare to hope, but something in his tone sparked a fragile flame inside her. Alexander rose from his chair, walked around the desk, and stood directly before her. "Ms. Dawson, he said firmly, "I'd like to offer you a position here at Carter Enterprises. Not out of pity, never that, but because I believe you can bring the kind of strength, perspective, and determination this company needs." For a moment, Emily couldn't breathe. She blinked rapidly, her throat closing as the weight of his words sank in. You're offering me the job. Yes. His lips curved into a faint, confident smile. Consider this the beginning, not the end. Before she could respond, Noah let out a cheer, holding up the little toy car Alexander had given him. "Mommy got the job," he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the vast office. Emily laughed through tears, pulling him into her lap and hugging him tightly. It had been so long since she felt joy like this, pure, unguarded, and overflowing. Alexander's expression softened even further as he watched them. For a brief moment, the steely CEO was gone, replaced by the boy who once looked up to his own single mother with admiration. "You'll start next week," he continued, his tone shifting back to professional but still warm. "And if you ever need flexibility for your son, this company will support you. We value people here, not just profits." Emily rose to her feet, still clutching Noah, her legs trembling from the rush of relief. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. You don't know what this means to us." "Oh, I do," he replied, his gaze steady. "More than you think." As she walked out of the office, the city skyline stretching wide before her, Emily felt lighter than she had in years. She wasn't just leaving with a job offer, she was leaving with hope, dignity restored, and the sense that her story had only just begun. For the first time, the future didn't look frightening. It looked bright.